My parents demanded that I sell the house I inherited from my grandpa or be disowned. Then stay with me while I share what really happened. And if my story touches your heart, don't forget to support our channel with a like, a share, and maybe even a subscribe. My name is Ayanna Briggs. I'm 19 years old, and I never thought I'd be the kind of person who had to choose between my family and my heart. But that's exactly what happened to me when my grandfather, Lemuel Briggs, passed away. To most people, Grandpa Lemuel's house in South Carolina might have looked like just an old place. Small porch, faded paint, creaky steps. But to me, it was everything. It was the place where I learned how to ride my bike, where I sat on summer nights listening to his stories, and where I felt safe when the rest of the world felt cold. That house wasn't just wood and brick. It was his love. The truth is, Grandpa raised me more than my parents ever did. My mom, Cassandra, and my dad, Milton, were always busy chasing something. Money, appearances, approval from people who never really cared about us. They gave me food and clothes, sure, but it was Grandpa who gave me time. He taught me how to cook cornbread from scratch, how to plant tomatoes in the back garden, and how to pray when life felt too heavy. When he passed away, it felt like my whole world stopped. I remember standing at his funeral, clutching the folded program in my hands, wishing I could hear him call me baby girl, just one more time. A week later, the lawyer read his will, and I found out he had left the house to me. Me. Not to my parents, not to anyone else, just me. For a moment, I felt honored. Like he was telling me, even after he was gone, that I was the one he trusted to carry his memory. But that peace didn't last long. The very same night, Cassandra and Milton sat me down at the dining table. My mom leaned forward with that sharp tone she always used when she wanted control. "Ayanna," she said, "you need to sell that house. We could use the money to help the family." I froze. "Sell it?" "No, Mama. Grandpa wanted me to have it." My dad, Milton, chimed in with his heavy voice. "Don't be selfish. That house is old and falling apart. You don't need it. We could turn it into something useful. Pay off bills. Make investments." Their words cut deeper than they realized. Selfish? How could keeping the only piece of my grandfather's love be selfish? I sat there stunned, realizing they weren't thinking about Grandpa at all. They were thinking about money. When I refused, the room grew cold. My mom's eyes narrowed. My dad leaned back in his chair. And then came the words that still echo in my mind. "Either you sell it, Ayanna, or you're no daughter of ours." I felt my chest tighten. Betrayal. That's what it was. Pure, sharp betrayal. And in that moment, I realized my fight wasn't just about a house. It was about love, legacy, and respect. And I wasn't going to give that up. Not for anyone. Cassandra's voice rang through the kitchen one morning, sharp and impatient. "Ayanna, you're being selfish. You don't even have a job that can cover the cost of keeping that house. Why hold on to it when you could sell and help the family?" I gripped the edge of the table, forcing myself not to snap. "Mama, Grandpa didn't give me that house so I could sell it. He wanted me to live there, to keep it in the family." Milton folded his arms and shook his head. "You're too young to understand. Selling it would give us the money we need to invest in the family's future." His tone sounded righteous, almost like a sermon. But I knew better. His future meant the overdue bills and the credit cards he had maxed out. I looked back at them both, my heart racing. Invest in the family's future, or cover your debts. Don't act like I don't know what's going on. The air turned heavy. Cassandra's lips pressed into a thin line before she leaned forward. "Watch your mouth, Ayanna. You don't speak to your parents that way. Everything we've done for you, and this is how you repay us? Keeping a rundown house instead of doing what's right." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. A part of me still wanted to believe they cared, that maybe they truly thought selling would be best. But the way their eyes glittered with desperation told another story. "I'm not selling it," I said firmly, though my voice trembled a little. "Grandpa wanted me to have it, and I'm going to honor that." Milton slammed his fist lightly against the table, making the salt shaker rattle. "You think you're grown now, huh? You think you don't need us? Fine. But if you keep that house, don't expect us to stand by you. You'll be on your own." The words cut deep, like they had rehearsed them just to wound me. On my own. The thought scared me, because as much as I leaned on Grandpa while he was alive, I still wanted the security of knowing I had parents to fall back on. Cassandra crossed her arms and added the final blow. "If you choose that house over us, then don't bother calling yourself our daughter anymore." I felt my throat tighten, and for a moment I couldn't even breathe. Was this really happening? Were they seriously making me pick between them and Grandpa's legacy? My chest ached as though a string was being pulled tight inside me, threatening to snap. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask them why money meant more than their own child. But all I could do was sit there, staring at the people who had given me life but were now willing to cut me out of theirs just to line their pockets. It was in that silence, in the weight of their threat, that something inside me began to shift. I could feel it. This wasn't just a disagreement. This was greed, bare and ugly. And if I gave in, I would lose not only the house, but the last piece of Grandpa that still felt alive with me. It happened on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I had gone to the courthouse to pick up some papers about the property taxes on Grandpa's house. When the clerk handed me a file, her tone was casual, but her words knocked the air out of me. "Oh, I see you've already started the process of listing the property. I'll just need your ID to finalize it." I froze. "Excuse me? What process?" She looked at me strangely and slid the paper closer. Right there in black ink was my grandfather's address, my house, listed under Cassandra and Milton Briggs. My parents' names. My hands shook as I read through the forms. They weren't just listed. They had signed my name at the bottom. My own parents had forged my signature to sell what was mine. I couldn't feel my legs as I left that building. Betrayal has a way of hollowing you out from the inside. I raced back home. The papers crumpled in my fist and stormed into their living room. "Care to explain this?" I shouted, throwing the documents onto the coffee table. Cassandra didn't even flinch. She sat back on the couch, crossed her arms, and gave me a look colder than ice. "So you found out. Good. Then you know it's better this way." Milton shifted uneasily in his chair, but before I could speak, Cassandra cut me off. "You don't deserve that house, Ayana. We do. We built this family, not your grandfather. That place should benefit us, not sit there while you cling to memories." Her words hit harder than any slap could. My voice cracked as I replied, "You think I don't deserve it? Grandpa raised me when you wouldn't. He gave me love, time, a home, things you never did. That house is his gift to me, and you tried to steal it." Milton's face reddened. "Lower your voice. You don't understand the bigger picture. We were going to handle this for you, because you clearly can't." "No," I snapped, tears stinging my eyes. "You were handling it for yourselves. Don't twist this into some favor. You forged my name. That's not helping me, that's betrayal." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Then Cassandra leaned forward, her voice sharp like broken glass. "If you won't sell it willingly, then you're no daughter of ours. Do you hear me? You walk out that door with that house, and you walk out of this family." The room spun around me. My chest ached like something was tearing in half. Part of me wanted to scream, to fight harder, to make them see what they were doing. But the other part, the stronger part, knew the truth. They would never see. They didn't care about Grandpa's love, or about me. All they cared about was what the house could give them. I picked up the papers, stuffed them back into my bag, and stood tall even though my legs trembled. "Then I guess I'm not your daughter anymore," I whispered. And with my heart breaking, I walked out, knowing nothing would ever be the same again. The first weeks after I walked away from Cassandra and Milton felt like stepping into an empty world. I had grown up craving their approval, even when I pretended I didn't care. Now their silence was louder than any shouting match we'd ever had. My phone stayed dark, no calls, no messages. Family dinners, birthdays, even casual check-ins, gone overnight. It was like I had been erased. At night, I'd sit on the porch of Grandpa's house with nothing but the hum of cicadas in the air. I wanted to cry, but mostly I just felt hollow. For the first time, I realized that losing people who never truly valued you hurts, but it also frees you. Then one afternoon, an old man from down the street, Mr. Turner, stopped by with a bag of peaches. "Your granddaddy used to share his crop with me every summer," he said, his eyes soft. "He was mighty proud of you, Ayana. Always talking about how you were his heart." His words cracked something open inside me. Soon after, Miss Laverne from the church came by. Holding a quilt she said Lemuel had asked her to give me one day. It was patched with scraps from his old shirts. "He wanted you to know you were never alone," she told me, pressing it into my arms. One by one, neighbors began sharing pieces of him with me, stories, memories, little keepsakes. Each one was like a light in the darkness I had been living in. Through their voices, I started to feel Grandpa's presence again, steady and strong, just like when he was alive. I realized something then. My parents could cut me off. They could smear my name. They could even try to steal from me. But they couldn't erase the love Lemuel had left behind. That love was mine to protect. I started walking the rooms of the house differently, running my hands along the walls, thinking of how many times Grandpa had painted them himself. I stood in the garden and remembered his voice teaching me how to turn the soil. Every memory became fuel, pushing me past the loneliness and into resolve. One evening, sitting with that quilt wrapped around me, I whispered a promise out loud. I'll keep this house, Grandpa, and I'll make them wish they never tried to take it from me. The thought of revenge no longer felt bitter. It felt necessary. Not just to punish Cassandra and Milton, but to show them I wasn't the weak, obedient daughter they thought they could manipulate. That night, under the stars, I stopped being the girl they had cut off and started becoming the woman Grandpa knew I could be. I wasn't just going to hold on to his house. I was going to turn it into a symbol, a reminder to everyone, especially my parents, that love and loyalty mean more than greed ever will. And in that moment, the first seeds of my revenge began to take root. It didn't take long for Cassandra and Milton to launch their next attack. Since they couldn't bully me directly anymore, they turned to the rest of the family. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in months started calling, their voices laced with judgment. Ayana, why won't you do the right thing? Your parents said you're being greedy, holding on to that house just for yourself. At first, I was stunned. Greedy? I barely had enough money to cover groceries some weeks, and they were painting me as if I was hoarding gold. The more I listened, the clearer it became. Cassandra and Milton had been spinning a story, telling everyone I was clinging to the house out of selfishness while the real family suffered. The next Sunday, at a family gathering I reluctantly agreed to attend, I walked in to find whispers and side eyes following me. Aunt Denise folded her arms, her voice sharp. Your mama says you won't help the family, that you're choosing a piece of property over your own blood. That true? My hands shook as I reached into my bag. I had come prepared. Slowly, I pulled out the one thing that could silence them all. Grandpa Lemuel's will. His handwriting filled the page, neat but firm, and at the very bottom were the words that burned brighter than anything Cassandra could invent. This house belongs to Ayana, and no one else. The room went still as I read those words aloud. Every syllable seemed to echo against the walls. I saw eyes widen, arms uncross, and expressions shift from doubt to unease. You see, I said, my voice steady. Grandpa chose me. Not because I begged, not because I tricked him, because he wanted me to have it. He trusted me to take care of it, and of his memory. That's the truth, whether you like it or not. Cassandra's face flushed red, and Milton cleared his throat, trying to recover. That doesn't mean she can't share it. Family should come first. But no one was buying it anymore. Aunt Denise turned her gaze on them instead. If that's what Lemuel wanted, then why didn't you say that from the beginning? Uncle Roy shook his head, muttering, Sounds like y'all were twisting the story to make her look bad. Their plan was unraveling right there in front of me. The more I stood my ground, the more their lies crumbled. I watched the shame spread across their faces, and for once, it wasn't me on trial. It was them. Walking out of that house later, I felt lighter. The truth had done more damage to their reputation than I ever could have imagined. But instead of relief, I felt something else spark inside me. If they were willing to smear me, forge my name, and try to strip me of Grandpa's legacy, then defending myself wasn't enough anymore. No, from that moment on, I wasn't just going to protect what was mine. I was going to make sure Cassandra and Milton regretted ever thinking they could take it from me. I woke up one morning and realized that protecting Grandpa's house wasn't enough anymore. I wanted it to shine, to be a symbol of his love and everything he had taught me. Selling it had never crossed my mind, but keeping it looking the way it had fallen into after years of neglect? That was a challenge, and one I was determined to take on myself. I started small. The roof had a few leaky spots, so I saved every penny I could from my part-time job and bought tarps and shingles. The garden was overgrown, weeds choking the flowers Grandpa had planted. I spent long evenings pulling them out, humming some of his favorite hymns, imagining him walking behind me with a proud smile. It wasn't easy. There were nights when my hands ached, and I wondered if I had made the right decision. But slowly, things started to change. My neighbors, many of whom had known Grandpa their entire lives, began stopping by. Miss Laverne offered to help repaint the porch, saying, he would have wanted this done with love, not just dollars. Mr. Turner brought his tools and a wheelbarrow, insisting he could fix the broken fence the way Lemuel would have. One by one, people joined in. Kids from the neighborhood carried buckets of paint, Teenagers trimmed hedges, and even retired carpenters offered their time to repair old doors and windows. Every day, the house transformed a little more. The peeling paint became a warm, inviting color. The garden bloomed with vibrant reds and yellows, and the air carried the scent of fresh soil and flowers once again. Word spread quickly. Friends of friends, distant neighbors, even people who had only heard about Grandpa's generosity started stopping by to admire the work. They called it a labor of love, proof that Lemuel's granddaughter was keeping his dream alive. The house that once seemed like an old, forgotten structure now felt alive again, buzzing with energy, memories, and care. And all the while, I could feel Cassandra and Milton's eyes everywhere, or at least their presence. I saw them driving slowly past the street one afternoon, their faces tight with frustration. They had tried to control me, tried to rob me of my grandfather's legacy, and now they could only watch as their plans failed. The house, restored to its former beauty and more, stood as proof that their greed could not touch what Grandpa had left me. With every nail hammered, every flower planted, I felt stronger. This house wasn't just a building. It was my grandfather's love, my heritage, and my victory over their betrayal. And as I wiped the sweat from my forehead one afternoon, looking at the freshly painted porch and blooming garden, I smiled. They could see all they wanted. No threat, no lie, no attempt at manipulation could undo what I was building. I wasn't just keeping the house. I was making it legendary, and everyone who knew Grandpa knew that I was the granddaughter who had refused to let his legacy die. It didn't take long for the cracks in their perfect act to show. I started hearing rumors through relatives and neighbors. Milton had lost his job, and Cassandra's credit cards were maxed out. They had painted me as the greedy one, but now the truth was catching up to them. Suddenly, the people who had once depended on me financially and emotionally were scrambling for help. One Saturday morning, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find both of them standing there, faces carefully softened, trying to look humble. Cassandra's usual sharp edge was replaced with a tentative smile, and Milton's chestnut eyes seemed almost apologetic. "Ayanna," Cassandra began, her voice trembling just slightly, We want to make things right. The family should be together again. Can we come in?" I paused, studying them carefully. I could feel the weight of their desperation radiating off them. Their act was obvious. The stiffness in Milton's posture, the way Cassandra's hand trembled as she adjusted her purse. It wasn't remorse, it was calculation. For a moment, I let a small part of me feel the old longing for family, the part that missed having their approval. But it was fleeting. I knew better now. I stepped aside and let them in, all smiles, though my mind was sharp as a blade. "Of course," I said gently. "Come on in. It's been a while." They walked through the house, commenting on the flowers and the fresh paint. I nodded and agreed, murmuring polite replies while my eyes never left them. Every word they spoke, every phrase about family and coming together, I cataloged like evidence. I didn't let them sense how little of me was actually fooled. As they admired the restored porch, I silently vowed that letting them back in emotionally was not an option. They weren't here because they suddenly valued Grandpa's legacy or wanted to reconnect with me. They were here because their lives were unraveling and they needed a lifeline. But I had learned something during the long days of repairs and quiet nights of reflection. I had power they didn't anticipate. I had the house, the respect of the community, and the story of my grandfather's love behind me. And most importantly, I had patience. While they chattered about old times and feigned regret, I began planning. A quiet, calculated plan that didn't just defend me. It would strike back at them in a way they couldn't ignore. Every lie they had told, every smear, every attempt to control me, they would see the consequences. I made a mental map of what I could do, considering timing, exposure, and impact. I smiled politely as they recounted exaggerated stories about the family hardships caused by my stubbornness. But inside, I felt a growing sense of satisfaction. The desperation in their eyes told me all I needed to know. The tables were slowly turning. By the time they left that afternoon, still talking about rebuilding the family, I was already several steps ahead. I had no intention of letting them manipulate me again. This time I was in control, and their moment of reckoning was coming. It was early Saturday morning when I heard shouting outside. I opened the door to see Cassandra and Milton standing on the porch, faces red with anger, hands clenched. Their eyes darted around nervously, aware that a few neighbors were already watching from across the street. "We need money, Ayanna," Milton barked, stepping forward. "You owe us. You can't just keep that house without helping your family." I stood my ground, feeling the strength I had built over the past months coursing through me. I didn't flinch. "Oh, you," I said, my voice calm but sharp. "You tried to steal this house. You forged my name. You disowned me. And now you're standing here like you're entitled to anything?" "No, not a single dollar." Cassandra's mouth opened, but before she could spit out another insult, I stepped outside fully and looked directly at the small crowd of neighbors who had begun to gather. "Everyone here knows what kind of people they are," I continued, my voice rising so all could hear. "They've lied to family, tried to manipulate me, and turned this home, my grandfather's legacy, into a source of greed for themselves." Milton's face darkened. "Ayanna, sit down. You're embarrassing us." "I'm embarrassing you?" I interrupted. "You've been trying to ruin me behind my back. You've told lies, forged documents, and tried to take away what isn't yours. The embarrassment is yours, not mine." Cassandra shrieked, a high, angry sound that made a few children on the street jump back. "How dare you talk to us like that? You ungrateful girl." I shook my head, letting my voice carry over the murmurs of the neighbors. "Ungrateful? I've done nothing but honor Grandpa's wishes, which you clearly never respected. I've worked to restore his house, made it beautiful, and protected his memory. And you've shown everyone who you really are." Milton stepped forward, but the more he tried to argue, the more defeated he looked. His jaw tightened, and I saw the realization in his eyes that no one would side with him. Finally, he grabbed Cassandra's arm and pulled her back. "Come on, we're leaving," he muttered, dragging her away. I watched them retreat, shoulders slumped, faces burning with shame. Around me, the neighbors began clapping softly, some cheering, some nodding in approval. They came forward, patting my back, telling me how proud they were. They shared stories of Grandpa's kindness and how proud he would have been to see me stand strong. I felt a surge of warmth and relief. For the first time since all of this began, I realized I wasn't alone. The community I had once only known in passing had become my real support system. And in that moment, standing in front of Grandpa's house, I knew something important. My parents could never take this from me again. Not the house, not the respect, and certainly not my peace. Their defeat wasn't just personal, it was public. And the neighborhood, once silent, had become my witness, my ally, and my shield. By the following spring, the house had transformed into more than just a restored home. It had become a hub of hope. I decided to honor Grandpa Lemuel in the best way I knew how, by turning his beloved house into a community center. The same walls that had once echoed with his laughter now rang with the voices of children learning to read, families cooking meals together, and neighbors coming to share advice or lend a hand. The community center wasn't about me. It was about him. Every corner carried a piece of his spirit. I set up a small library in the living room, stocked with books Grandpa had loved, and converted the backyard into a safe space for the kids to play. On weekends, we held workshops teaching skills, crafts, and even gardening, just as Grandpa had taught me. Word spread quickly. People came from neighboring streets, hearing about the young woman who had refused to give in to greed and instead used her grandfather's legacy to uplift everyone around her. Parents brought their children, volunteers offered their time, and slowly, the center became a staple of the community. Every time I saw a child's eyes light up while learning something new, I felt Grandpa's pride like a warm hand on my shoulder. Meanwhile, the story of Cassandra and Milton's betrayal had taken on a life of its own. Neighbors who had witnessed the confrontation, relatives who had been warned by the will, and even local gossip spread the truth about how they had tried to forge my signature, disown me, and manipulate everyone for their own gain. Their names became synonymous with greed and dishonesty. No one trusted them anymore. Invitations to family events stopped, calls went unanswered, and even casual neighbors began keeping their distance. Their attempts to reconcile earlier had failed miserably, leaving them isolated. Milton's job search turned desperate as his professional reputation suffered, and Cassandra's mounting credit card debt seemed unending. They were trapped in the very chaos they had tried to blame on me, while I moved forward, building something real and lasting. The satisfaction I felt wasn't born from bitterness. It came from justice and purpose. I had taken what they had tried to take from me, my grandfather's legacy, my dignity, and my voice, and turned it into a force that could help dozens, maybe hundreds of people. Every success of the center was a reminder that greed and cruelty rarely triumph when faced with determination, love, and community. One afternoon, as I watched a group of kids painting murals in the backyard, I smiled quietly. The laughter, the learning, and the pride in their faces reminded me of Grandpa Lemuel. This house had been his gift, his love, and his memory. And now it was a living testament to everything he had stood for, a beacon of hope, resilience, and unwavering integrity. Cassandra and Milton's downfall was complete, but my victory wasn't just theirs. It belonged to the neighborhood, to Grandpa, and to the future I was helping to build. His love had never left me, and through this house, it would never leave anyone else either. The sun was dipping low over South Carolina, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I sat on the porch of Grandpa Lemuel's house, my hands resting on the warm wooden railing, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood around me. Kids were running through the yard, their laughter echoing across the street, while a few older children helped each other paint small benches we had set up for the community center. The air was alive with energy, joy, and something I hadn't felt in years: peace. I leaned back in the chair Grandpa had built with his own hands, letting myself breathe deeply. For so long, my thoughts had been consumed by my parents' betrayal. The lies, the threats, the attempts to take what wasn't theirs. I had imagined standing over them in anger, hoping to see them regret what they had done. But as I watched the children play, I realized that my revenge had never been about money or humiliation. It had been about something far bigger: legacy, respect, and the quiet power of doing what was right. The community center thrived. Families came not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The garden overflowed with vegetables and flowers, the library buzzed with eager readers, and the small art room constantly displayed new murals created by young hands. Every detail reminded me of Grandpa's love and the values he had instilled in me. This was living proof that his memory could not only survive but flourish. I thought about Cassandra and Milton, still isolated and struggling, their reputation tarnished by the truth of their actions. I felt no glee in their hardship, only a quiet satisfaction in knowing that integrity and effort had triumphed over greed and deceit. They had tried to disown me, to erase me from the family, but in doing so, they had shown me exactly what I was capable of when left to stand on my own. A soft breeze carried the scent of fresh flowers from the garden, and I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the evening sink in. I had fought for something meaningful, something that mattered beyond money or fleeting approval. I had turned a house into a home, a legacy, a place of hope for everyone who needed it. Opening my eyes, I looked at the children again. Their faces were bright, their laughter contagious, and I felt the weight of the past lift even further. The anger, the betrayal, the sorrow, they were all behind me now, replaced by pride and gratitude. My parents thought they could disown me, but I realized I never truly had them to begin with. What I did have, though, was my grandfather's love, and that was enough to build a future stronger than their betrayal could ever break. I smiled, the sound of laughter and life surrounding me, knowing that Grandpa's dream had survived, and so had I. The house, the community, the legacy, they were mine to protect, to nurture, and to cherish. And in that moment, I understood that true victory is never measured in revenge or wealth. It is measured in love, in honor, and in the quiet triumph of doing what is right, no matter what others think. Do you think Ayanna made the right choice by standing up to her parents and protecting her grandfather's legacy? Or should she have tried to reconcile with them? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to hear what you think. And if you love stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new one.